this video covers some serious content, but I also wanted to make it a bit light-hearted. So I'm talking about the implementation of generative AI in Atlas at this moment in time, May 2023. I've been writing a blog about it, and it had some positive reception. People congratulated me on a well-done analysis, and other people criticized me. Well, I'm still here. Of having been unfair and going as far as throwing me out as co-author in some publications. So in this video, I want to go through my reasoning, and you may follow my reasoning, you may also disagree with my reasoning, but I want to show you live why I argue the way I argue, and that's why this video is rather long, and you find a table of content in the comment field in case you just want to zoom into specific parts. Before I go into the analysis, I want to state a little bit about my background in case you're not familiar. I've been using ATLAS.ti since 1996. I've been writing numerous books about it, a lot of other publications that were a lot of times about Atlas, but also including other tools like Max4DA and Vivo and other tools that are out there. When I'm talking about the implementation of generative AI in Atlas, I'm not talking about the entire software Atlas. I love working with the software, and I've been doing so for many, many years. I still teach it, but I'm looking at one new feature. I'm starting out this video with a public promise that is made with what we can see on the Atlas website. And then we do some fact checking whether the promises that are made actually hold up to what the function delivers. So let's get started. Let's just quickly read through the promises that are made. Yeah, of course, some people just go and say, well, this is just marketing bullshit. But this is what people read when they go to the website. They read it, ATLAS.ti and OpenAI gain qualitative insight in minutes instead of weeks. Well, we're going to see whether that is actually a fact. Say goodbye to endless manual coding and hello to AI-driven assistance on autopilot fueled by the cutting-edge GPT model. With our OpenAI-powered software, you can complete your research projects up to 10 times faster. We will see, or I will show you what kind of results then you will get. Fully automated code proposals take the grand work out of your hands, so you can focus on refinement and analysis for optimized scientific accuracy. And in this video, I will actually show what it means to refine those AI codes. And we have this other nice paragraph here, analyze and refine your data. Well, that's kind of the main message here, but anyone can take control of their qualitative analysis without prior knowledge. So anyone, you don't have to know anything about qualitative data analysis. You can edit content, refine, and structure your data the way you need. Simply use codes to tag qualitative insights and embrace AI coding plus team collaboration for lightning speed outcomes. So we have no prior knowledge. Anyone can take control. It's the AI coding, and I don't know what the team collaboration is in there, that only probably leads to more endless discussions, but for lightning speed outcome. So we always know if you start discussing things with team, it's never going to be lightning speed outcomes. Because what also I've been, it has been said is, well, I, with my background, approach coding in a very different way, and that's why I think it doesn't work. Well, I gave somebody with a 45-minute introduction, and so with that introduction, here is an AI coded project. Go and do refine, and they also will see or will hear about the results, how that experiment turned out. Yeah, let's go now into Atlas and actually see how that looks like. So I'm working with two documents here, and these are from the standard children happiness sample project that you also find on the Atlas website, and many other articles written around that. And the documents, if I open them in Word, both together are about 40 pages. That is kind of the equivalent of 2 interview transcripts of about 1 hour. 1 hour transcript, we have about 20 pages of text. So this coding was now done in 31 seconds. I had other rounds of 26 seconds, 14 seconds. So it does go very quick. And if you have more than 2 documents, if it takes a few minutes, it's still very quick. So here we have the lightning speed. So what we have here now, we have 366 newly created codes, and the system has created 231 what Atlas calls quotations, so data segments. So for those who haven't seen it yet, so this is a list of codes, and let's go and open a document to see how that actually looks like. In the first document, about 90 comments on a parenting block, and each of these sections here is a comment of one person, and that the AI seems to have also picked up on that, and codes, attaches codes to each of these comments. So it does code paragraph by paragraph, but as we've seen here, sometimes, it left out that second bit here. So if the paragraph is too short, it's too little information and it cannot code it. So it basically goes through paragraph by paragraph and attaches whatever thing it seems to be suitable. And if you now look at that first segment, I was happy before I had kids and I'm happy now. However, the first year of motherhood was rough. I was only 25 and becoming a mother forced me to grow up. All of a sudden I had to become a lot less selfish and a lot more responsible, which is not easy in a culture that glorifies self-centeredness and irresponsibility. So it picks up on cultural expectation, on parenthood, personal growth and responsibility. So that seem all be fine. And if you go through the other segments, so if you just focus on one segment and look at what codes have been applied, it seems to be reasonable. Sometimes you can just say, well, that doesn't really fit, so you can unlink the code, but it does seem to be like a first impression of, that looks okay, the coding. And then if you go and look at the code manager, then you can see how often a code was applied. So we see lots of 1s and 2s and very low numbers. We can sort by groundedness. So we see that the whole study, of course, is on parenthood and parenting, and it's about the relationship between happiness and having children, and there's lots of studies who have found out that there's a negative correlation between happiness and children, or being happiness, marital satisfaction, and the fact of having children. And this is now debated here in the parenting blog, and in the second article, it's an article that has been published on that subject in the New York Times magazine. And there are also comments of the readers of that article. So that's what this data set is all about. And then we can see that, I don't know where to make the cutoff, but the most frequent codes here, about 10, 15, that have a higher frequency, where the AI picked up on and did at least some form of aggregation. So you could say, I only focus on those and just leave out the other 350 codes or so, and start refining now on parenthood and parenting and so on. That could also be an approach. I actually spent some of my free time, of my valuable time, to actually test how long it would take to refine the codes. This was also, of course, a matter of experimentation. How would I go about refining it? Again, one approach could have been to start with the most frequent ones and see whether there would be actually proper subcodes of the label AI had found. Well, I decided to go through the list of codes and see, and read it and see what that segment is actually about, and started to put that into code groups. So in a sense, then I realized after, hey, I'm kind of recode the data, looking, putting them into code groups to kind of see what belongs together. And let's look at this one. Yeah, so here I made code groups based on the time. So I went, after half an hour, I managed to went through 39 codes. After 70 minutes, I managed to work through 50 codes of these 300 and around 370 codes. And after 4 hours, yeah, this is not live now, this is just screenshot, I would have deleted 158 of those. I left them in there, just put them into the group to yeah, if you delete them, you can't count them anymore. So that was after 4 hours of working with the data. And that means if you deduct that from 367, I would still have a good 210 codes to go to just see where they would belong. You see that here, at some point I stopped with these code group and grouping the codes here. So let's kind of go into the project, the live project in Atlas. So here then I worked a bit longer, and after about 4 hours and 40 minutes, then I already worked a little bit more with refinement and stopped through going through the list. And I actually came up with, or left some of the suggested codes, but relabeled them. So 10 of them, the codes suggested by I felt like, okay, they were okay. And let's look at here the agreement one. That is if somebody agreed with a statement somebody else had made. So that was a suggestion by AI, but also not very consistent. So it kind of found like 3 of them. Yeah, so it did suggest three text segments that were agreement. I actually found some more here, and I'm not through the entire data set. And that would be interesting if you do more discourse type of analysis, where you look at whether people agree or disagree based on something somebody else has written prior to them. For a pure content analysis wouldn't be relevant. But in terms of reliability, well, we after an update, the AI actually now codes the data the same way every time you do it. That wasn't the case in the beginning, and that's what I criticized in my article, saying a human is not reliable, but AI is more reliable. And there's, well, you get different results every time you code. Well, they fix that problem, so that sometimes criticism is also good for something. But speaking about reliability, or the promise of reliability, well, I get the suggestion that it's not like picking up reliably on all statements where there is agreement. I can do that as a human evaluator, but that means, again, I have to read the data, and that's what is time consuming. So these were the codes I kind of took over from AI. These were codes that I came up with by myself. And you see, I already have a high number of aggregation here. So I started to aggregate the data while I was doing that. And I wasn't using categories and subcategories yet. I was kind of using these prefixes because it was more like this general topic of parenting and parenthood. And yeah, here you also see that would be probably also if I would have started with the parenthood that was used 38 times and started to refine it. But then parenthood as achievement, parenthood ambivalence, it's all within the big bucket of parenthood, but it's very different thing. Or parenthood is not for everyone. That wouldn't be necessarily direct subcodes of parenthood. The same with here we have positive and negative aspects, but worthwhile. Yeah, so the positive effects maybe category and worthwhile efforts, a subcode underneath, or that still needs some time to refining that. So that still needs some work and refining those after going through all the codes. So the time I spent up to this point was 30 minutes straight to begin with, and then another 4 hours and 40 minutes straight. And that's just me. If you give me some data and I go into it, I just don't stop, I don't break, I don't go to the toilet, I don't get something to drink. I just work through it. So I was really surprised when I looked at my, I timed it here, that the time went by. So it went by quickly, but that doesn't mean I saved time. It's just, and what I'm saying is like that was 40 hours, 40 minutes without breaks. A normal person would probably, after an hour of coding, maybe get a cup of coffee, get a cup of tea, whatever. I mean, what I've done here and what I went through so far, meaning, still about 210 codes to go, would have been a day's work. And based on experience, I always tell people if you have a 1 hour interview, it takes you about 3 hours of manual coding. And we have 2 documents here of the length of about 2 interviews. So manual coding would mean 6 hours of manual coding. And if you start coding, well, there is no code system yet. So you still need some time to also then to you code and refine and work with that. So let's also add another 4 hours, let's give it 10 hours to work manual coding with those documents and come up with some kind of first version of a code system. I'm not sure whether I get to that point after working through my AI generated codes. Like I'm kind of 5 hours in of straight work without breaks, and I'm not even halfway done. So that was my not only kind of looking at some text segments and saying, well, this is going to take ages to sort that out, but really trying to sort it out. And the point then also is, if you have done this, you went through these 2 documents with 370 codes, it takes you 10 hours to do that, and then you take the next 2 documents, get another 370 codes, spend another 10 hours. Because normally once you have starting to find your, you start building your code system, you start reapplying those codes, and you're not getting another huge bucket of codes to sort through. So you could of course say, well, let's code all 4 documents or all 10 documents at once. Well, let's look at how that looks like. So we have here 4 interviews, 1 hour lengths, and we get 568 codes. Yeah, again, There's some data aggregation here. Under experience we get even 62, and then you can kind of work through whatever AI is aggregated here. But again, within experience we have again lots of low frequency codes again to work through. So the question is whether they all fit under experience or whether we have to resort them in any case. And this data was actually coded before the bug fix. So what I actually realized now after the bug fix, it's doing less of the categorization or the suggested categorizations. So we would get fewer high level codes. So here we have now a project with, well, the whole project has 180 documents, but I only coded 60 of those. So you can see that here, that all of these, I was only 50 of those coded. Well, in this version now 1,300 are top level codes, and then with some some subcode. So I coded this before the bug fix, so I don't want to recode this again, because that actually takes a while to code all of those. These are longer documents. Well, some documents are maybe just 5 pages, and other might be 50 pages, but it's 50 documents coded. And you see it has been kind of aggregating some data under some higher order terms, and I assume if I recode the data it would do that less. And yeah, we see this is in real time now what's happening. I'll just try to open it. I would argue, and now I've been just trying to filling that time here, how long it takes to just open one of those categories. And what I was trying to do, and that's not all of them yet, I try to just kind of group into that code group frequency 1 all codes that only occur once. I'm not done yet, so I think it's probably over 2,000. But it was so frustrating. I was crashing, not the Atlas, but the code manager was crashing almost after every action I did, just highlighting something, and it crashed. So it's simply not made for those many codes. Now, promising you can do coding very quickly, which is kind of true, even if it might take a few hours to code these 50 documents. Yeah, we have already established, like, coding, like the coding is done quickly, but then refining the coding would take longer than coding 50 documents. I think there will be people lured into, okay, now, coding is not a problem anymore. You can just dump in 50 documents or 100 documents. So we do, of course, we have lots more material now, so it's it does find a number of things that it can aggregate on one keyword. But that now means, is it all about social justice? What it is about social justice? So we have 222 segments to go to, or 65 segments to go through sociology, or 62 segments to go through activism. So again, to refine those codes, even if you say I'm only focusing on the higher order codes, then that is still, there's still very much time to go through that. And I'm still waiting for the education category to open. Now it has been opened. To recap, we just had 2 documents with 370 codes. We had 4 interviews with 456 codes or something like that. Sorting through those, probably a 20-hour job. In that time I would have coded those interviews manually. Coding 50 documents well, I don't want to imagine how to sort through those codes and having to deal with Atlas slowing down and Atlas crashing all the time and things taking ages. That's not much fun. That's more of, it adds frustration, and it's not gonna speed up analysis, but also it's kind of making you wanting to throw out the software out of the window. So that is not really serving the purpose either. What's that? Oh god, it's gone. Well, let's continue. So as we as we've seen in on the web page, you don't have to have prior experience. You can just go and start with adding codes and using AI, and then start refining. So this was a test person. I asked kindly, could you do this? And that person had a 45 minutes introduction, not actually about the entire software, but just what you need to know in order to refine and code and adjust and merge, and that part of knowledge you need to have in order to actually be able to do that work. And one suggestion that was made out of the Atlas office was, well, creating all this list of codes, but there's also lots of duplication. So that's here advice giving. So it's just a matter of merging it, and then it's easy to refine. Or we have aging here. Is that something I can merge? Or but how do I know whether I can merge it? So you can go in the preview here and then look at what we found here under aging. I think woman's ticking biological clock is underrated here as well. So it is talking about the fear of missing out if I as a reason for having children. So here we get the aging aspect of given as a reason for having children. And now we look at aging here. My grandmother had 13 children and she was just dying. So then there it goes about that process and what she said. Here aging is not about reasons for having children. It's about reviewing life afterwards. So here aging and aging we cannot merge. It's two different things. And then we can think about how do we want to code that instead, or do we gonna get rid of it? So you have to read the data in order to see whether it makes sense to, or whether it's really the same. You have advice: if you want to have children because you expect them to make you happy, you shouldn't have children. So that person is giving advice to other readers. And here, my life is always fun for more, and I love children too. I also don't hang on stuff like losing sleep to be there for someone and embrace what's happening in the moment and so on. If you're not ready for the responsibility of children, then don't have them. So here it's also advice giving. So these two I can merge, and maybe I would just leave advice giving here, because both people give advice. But the only way I can decide that is to go and read the data. So what this person did went actually through all of these things that were duplicated, or that looked like they were maybe similar codes, and it didn't go through 83 codes, but it just these were the codes A to about D the person got through. So that's when after the 40 minutes I just created this group and said, okay, this about here this person managed to go through, but also not through the disagreement. So it was letter A with D, kind of going, just looking for duplications here. And now let me just read the reflection on this exercise here. Well, I went through the codes from A, looking for double descriptions. On finding similar codes, or nearly similar ones, I start to read the text to decide if they need to be merged or not. And since I'm not all familiar with qualitative analysis, it makes me feel very uncertain to let my novice thinking overrule what's already there. Well, it's a kind of interesting insight that people kind of believe, oh, AI has been doing it, it must be good, and I have no idea, and so maybe, you know, I just leave it. So can a person actually, just having no idea how it actually works, then do the refinement? Just as an open question. The struggle became quite intense because there were many variables that came into play, and the many variables are actually the multiple codes here. If you go back to the data, we always have multiple codes that are attached to each segment. And yeah, you read aging. By the time you get to the letter F, you read, oh, I've had this segment before. If you get to the letter G, you read that segment again. So you're gonna read every segment multiple times, not only once. The struggle became quite intense because there were many variables that came into play, and I asked myself if the text under the different similar codes were truly different and needed separate codes, or if I could merge them, and if they were separate, whether I should alter the code label to differentiate them more clearly, because the person has no idea actually what to come, and also what analysis actually means and what possibilities they are. So in my mind, it was difficult to reason one way or the other conclusively. The further I got into the list, the more difficult it became to differentiate or combine text. I focused on the task at hand to reduce double code descriptions. I realized I focused fully on the one code of a text and did not look at all the other codes that there were. Thus, cleaning up the list would mean painstakingly going through the list of codes and reading text fragments multiple times to get the job done. So also this person was realizing, like, the more the person was going through the text and reading it, it was rereading the same segments again and again, because first under the code aging, and then under the code fear, and then under the code gender again. After 40 minutes, it was from letter A to D to just kind of cleaning up duplicated labels, or labels that seem to be kind of duplicates. You had still 280 codes to go through, and that doesn't mean anything is cleaned up or looking at whether a code actually is applicable or needs to be removed altogether. And again, a novice with no experience might not even dare to do that, and also not knowing that with codes that have a frequency of 1, if you have a few of them, it's fine, but if you have so many with a frequency of 1, you don't see anything in the analysis. You won't see any patterns, anything, if you run any further analysis. So let's take another approach to this. Again, we have the same documents here, and look what we could do in terms of lightening speed. So look at this project now from taking a different approach, and look what we can actually do in terms of a quick analysis where we don't have to refine the coding, because refining the coding, we have seen, takes ages. So forget about that. Oh my god, they come up with new ideas all the time. Why is it gone? So now it's sorted by frequency, and I made a code group of codes that appeared at least 4 times. And then I was trying to run some analysis, and you see a number of codes have some colors, and that were some codes where there actually was something coming out. As we see here also, let's look at one document here again. And that could be argued, could be an advantage that lots of these segments are coded with multiple codes. That means we could explore a code co-occurrence. Because if I put in a lot of low frequency code in the co-occurrence table, I don't see anything. Yeah, it get a huge table with, you know, lots of zeros and ones, and that's why I said let's kind of focus on the higher frequency codes. Let's set them as global filter. And now you can kind of see that, well, this is a couple of steps that you need to know the software, and somebody who's just very new to the software might not be able to do that. And I'm just going into the data now. I don't want to spend so much time. I want a quick and lightning speed outcomes here. Yeah, I take the first codes here until gratitude and relate them to the rest of it, and see what we get. Yeah, also with my most frequency codes here, I already got like a table with lots of ones in it. So I've cleaned up a little bit, took out all the ones that I've already previously selected as not being so relevant. But that could be something you could say, well, you know, let's go interpret that. So we see parenthood relates to happiness and love in personal growth, and whatever the personal issues are, we don't know. We would have to read it in order to understand what happess and parenting means, and what parenthood and happiness means. Now you can go through the table and kind of read through this and see what you come up with. But now we have focused on about 10 codes out of the 370. So we don't have no idea how much of the data material that covers and how much we are actually leaving out by just focusing on that. I could now, you know, also do a Sankey diagram, so I can see what relates to parenting, I can see what relates to parenthood, and what relates to challenges in a visual manner. So now we need to read all of this, or export those segments. We can, you know, see, hopefully we can read all of it with the large preview. Yeah, so what is the next step? Yeah, you read all of that and then you start kind of writing it up. That also, to my understanding, is not really lightning speed. So I was actually speeding that up a bit by using ChatGPT. I exported all of these into an Excel table, and from there copied it to ChatGPT. So that is that kind of extra step that needed to be done in order to do this. So I produced a rather 25-page document that then again I have to read and go through, and also producing that took quite a while. Yeah, so here we see I took out the co-occurrence, love in family, love in gratitude, love in happiness, love in parenthood, love in parenting, and then the summaries. And what I've seen before, because a lot of these things are coded with multiple of these codes, there's lots of repetition in these summaries. And even though I already splitted them, yeah, so that it was even double work to just do them by document 1 and by document 2, and that's one criteria. And if you want to compare it to multiple criteria, you have to kind of do the whole thing multiple times. The other type of analysis you can run is comparing the two. Well, each document do it, case analysis. So now we get an overview over the two documents, but here again you have to know a little bit again about analysis as well, and also about the tools that are available. So the blog is almost double as long, as we have about 90 comments, and in the second document we have only about 40 comments. So what we actually need to do here is we need to normalize the data. So because we cannot compare absolute frequencies, it looks like that occurs many more times, but of course the document is twice as long. So we have to normalize the data. And as we now get numbers like 14.34, that's not number of statements, that is normalized data, we then generally would look at relative frequencies in order to compare it. And then you see also the heat map actually changes also colors here. So when all the darker colors were here with the blog comments, now we see some of it also here on the right side on that second document with the comments on the newspaper articles. So again, we can now see that 70% talked about parenthood in the parenting blog, and only 30% in the New York Times article, and there they talk more about parenting than on the parenting blog. They talk more about most of the personal issues, they were actually in the comments on the newspaper article. And there was also more talk about regret. So that means in order to come up with a conclusion, again, we would have to look at the data behind it. We cannot just make a conclusion now, we have to understand what's behind it. And I think also somebody with no knowledge on qualitative method will kind of agree that we can't just live here by the numbers and not knowing what it actually means. We haven't reviewed the codes, we just jumped into by what the AI has done, because lightning speed analysis is promising. If you want lightning speed, we have to just cut a few corners here to get to some results. So again, I used ChatGPT to summarize the data and then to come up with what people in the parenting blog said about parenting, and then we can compare what the people in the New York Times said about parenting or parenthood, and so on. And then what did they say about happiness, and what did they say in the other document about happiness. And if you have 6 respondents you want to compare, would be some time also to get to this, especially not having the summarizing function within the software. And I can only hope it will be added, because that's what you want if you want a speedy analysis. And again, that's not the final result here, that is a summary, and then your interpretation kind of needs to follow on that. But of course, if you don't know anything about methods, you might just kind of live with summaries, because that's also a skill to then from there go an interpretation of the data. Well, if you read through these data here now, there is also lots of repetition in there. Yeah, it tells me about parenthood, and that's challenging and it's different for different people. While if I go to regret and resentment, the things come up again and again, because also in summarizing here because all these things are coded multiple times, the same segments will come up under parenthood, and the same segments will come up under regret and resentment or personal growth. And then in the summary of the data, we will ending up getting the same data again. I would go with the co-occurrence, because that's even more repetition there, and then you will have to sit with that document and maybe again doing some coding and in order to figure out what is now what can you single out now. So the manual coded project has 66 unique codes, and it's sorted under experience of parenthood and about negative effects and positive effects and perception. It's split under reasons for having children, against and for having children. I also coded things like whether somebody has a child and doesn't have a child. Those codes didn't occur at all in the AI coding, in order to maybe then also code the perceptions of people who, it's a difference between number of children, does it have an effect on the perception of parenting, and so on. And I also here coded attitude, whether they believe children make them happy, yes or no. So let's just look at some screenshots in this article. So this is how the coding looks like when it's manually coded, and now I can, you also see there's some, multiple coding going on, and all the gray codes are actually the social demographics I coded, and I coded the content. So what did these people say or experience or express who had one child or two or more children, and so on. So this can now be related in the co-occurrence table. And it's a small sample project. This is a bit of an older screenshot, so we now see the actually coded data on the right hand side. So having now split the negative and positive effects into codes and subcodes, then you can see that there is people with one child, they report more on the negative effects, and people with two or more children, they report more on the positive effects. And then those with one child, they when they talk something about positive experience, then it's about personal growth. So that is analysis you can do with the manual coded data. So I also related that, the positive and negative experience of parenthood, to the codes, to the attitude codes. Do I actually believe that children make me happy? And what we see here is something like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If I believe that children make me happier, then I also seem to experience parenting more positive. Don't shoot me here because of the numbers. I think it's all explained in there. It's a very small data set, but the fact that it actually something meaningful comes out with such a small data set is like actually already interesting. And I think even if there would be more data, I think my hypothesis would be that we would kind of see the same trend. And then of course you can start interpreting and theorizing why this is actually happening, and of course you have access to the data behind it. The other paper talking about the code document analysis is not using this sample project, but as we have done the AI coding on this project, then just quickly let me do that live. And just one example we can do here is comparing the two documents. So now we can see that the negative effects we're talking about are less fun, loss of freedom, more worries, negative effects on relationship, negative effects on self. On the positive side, it's about fulfillment, it's improved relationship, life is richer, personal growth, and positive emotions. And then we can look at the difference in the different documents, and of course it always can look at the data behind it. But this kind of gives us immediately a bird's eye view before we can look at the data behind it, and it gives us a bit more meaningful results than just having, this is about how much they talked about parenting and how much they talked about parenthood, but we don't know what exactly they are talking about there. So I'm back into my kind of summary document, and what we see here under parenting for the New York Times is just a few highlights here. It's encouraged to focus on the positive aspects of parenting, but what they are is not mentioned. And there's a difference between past and present generations that is discussed here. There's increased anxiety in modern times, and the complexities of mixed emotions. And also one person shares the love for being his parent despite all the challenges. And so that's all about the ambivalence that we get here. The question of notion of constant happiness is questioned, and the trade-offs and the challenges are emphasized. We have the importance of leading a purposeful life and meaning. Now, that's a very different type of analysis that you can get based on this manual coding than what you could get with a quick and dirty or lightning speed analysis of the AI coded data if we simply focus on the high frequency codes, because everything else is just taking ages to refine. And once we refine the AI codes, we probably can come up with something that we see here. To summarize this video, the main points here I would like to make is to point out a common misconception that coding is analysis, or the code system already represents analysis. Coding is a means to an end. By coding the data, we give us the ability to retrieve data based on the codes we have created and call all kinds of different ways, also in combination with variables and so on, whatever options these various software programs offer us. So it's a means to an end to access the data. And before we had programs like Atlas, well, people did that with index cards and with cutting and pasting the data segments that were similar and making like piles of paper on the floor. So when these programs came around 30 years ago, that was a huge help, actually getting the stacks of papers from the floor into a digital environment, or have a better system than sorting index cards. But that is what codes are for. The second point is, and I think you might understand that now better, why I was comparing Canvas.ai with Atlas. It was not about comparing the coding. It was about comparing the implementation of generative AI and the way Atlas has done it and the way Canvas.ai has done it. Yeah, if you haven't read the blog, Canvas.ai has used it to summarize the data, and also what you also can do, you can pose questions to the generative AI tool that is built in. And so what I've been arguing is that Canvas.ai has implemented generative AI in a smarter way than Atlas did with trying to focus on the coding aspect. And then shortly after I posted the blog, also Max Coulier came out with that summarizing feature. The way I see it, with the way Atlas has implemented, is trying to look for a faster horse. But the question here is, giving the new possibilities, shouldn't we rather take this opportunity and start to rethink qualitative data analysis? And rather, instead of asking, how can we implement a faster horse, asking the question, is coding still necessary? I will think more about that question in a lunch seminar I'm going to give within my qualitative community that I just started. So you can sign up for the community, and there will be lunch or afternoon seminars depending on your time zone in German and English every month. And in June, the first one in June, it is going to be about that question: how to rethink qualitative data analysis. If you're interested in exploring that question further, I'm having a 2-day workshop the 12th and 13th of September as part of a summer method school, and we have some interesting guests there with researchers from the MIT. And this workshop will give you an opportunity to try out various tools, to play with those tools, to discuss what effect they have on your work, about ethical issues, about how this might be impacting analysis, or the advantages, disadvantages you might see with those tools. It's really constructed as a workshop where we all work together on these new exciting topics. I'm gonna moderate and lead and introduce you to the tools. I intend this as a continuous feature because this is going to continue to develop. Yeah, if you watch this video after September, then look for the link in the still in the comment field down there. Then it might be a workshop in the next winter school or the summer school next year. So it's going to be an ongoing feature, this workshop. And this will probably also be an ongoing topic in the community. So to join the community, it's free. I hope to see you there, that we can discuss these interesting issues further. Have you enjoyed the video? Are you hungry for more on all things qualitative? Then hit that subscribe button to stay updated on our latest content. And if you're eager to take your knowledge to the next level, get in touch. You will find the contact details in the comment field below. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button.